Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom or Tom. How's it going?
Tony, we are doing a show on how Ohio State is going to replace Caleb Downs. And right before we hit record, Leslie Nielsen popped his head into the cockpit and said, "Just want to say good luck. We're all counting on you."
Yeah, whatever you do, don't eat the fish. Boy, how do you replace Caleb Downs? You can't, but you got to try. And that's the thing. The world keeps on moving, and college football keeps on moving forward, and Ohio State has to move on forward without them. What you can do, you can't cry about him being gone. You just appreciate the 2 years that you had with them and that you did get a national championship while he was here. So, in his 2 years at Ohio State, you didn't maximize it, but you didn't squander it either. So I think, and certainly he maximized his time, but you got your national championship in 2024. You made it to the playoffs in 2025, and now he is gone. And oh boy, yeah. So how do you replace Caleb Downs, Tom? I think on one hand, you go and you get Terry Moore, right, from Duke. On the other hand, you also go and get Earl Little from Florida State, right, and then you've got Jalen McLean, who learned from Caleb Downs how to operate in this defense. So how do you replace them? You try to find the best of those three guys and split up Caleb Downs, uh, his skill set and his ability to do this and that and this between the three of them, because you can't ask one person to do what he did.
Yeah, I think the premise of this show, this is just kind of a series, and how are they going to replace this? So we're keeping the titling and branding consistent on it. But the secret answer is you can't replace Caleb Downs. Like, you cannot just it's not just, well, okay, he's gone and now we have this guy and now it's going to be exactly the same. Maybe we'll even let him wear number two. I think actually Kenyatta Jackson, I think, is wearing number two this upcoming season. So that's one reason that a safety cannot replace Caleb Downs. Number two jersey potentially already taken. But the other reason that you can't replace Caleb Downs is because Caleb Downs is, it's the title of one gets thrown around a lot, but Caleb Downs and Jeremiah Smith are two guys who really are kind of one of one, who were on that 2025 Ohio State team. I don't know, you can't really replace Caleb Downs with just one guy, as you said. And I think, to their credit, man, oh man, I think they did their very best to get as close as they possibly could to
Mm-hmm.
replacing Caleb Downs. You go back through our shows where we're talking about the transfer portal. I think both of us talked about Terry Moore as the guy we thought was, maybe the most impactful guy for the 2026 season. And he's the guy who's going to be tasked with doing, I think, the majority of what Caleb Downs did last year, and kind of trying to fill those shoes as best he can. And I think they did as good a job as they can, bringing in a guy who's a veteran, bringing in a guy who's obviously a very intelligent player, a guy who's kind of done it at on a power conference level before, and has been a very, very productive player in a lot of different areas of the game, in the way that Caleb Downs was, where it's a safety position, but you'd get some tackles for loss, you'd get some interceptions, you get a little bit of this, you get a little bit of that. I think they did as good a job as they possibly can, and now it's just a matter of, can he be very good and be 75% of Caleb Downs, or can he be outstanding and be 85% of Caleb Downs? Because I don't think you're ever getting to 100% of Caleb Downs.
Well, and also we always use this example is going from Malik Hooker to in 2016 to Jordan Fuller in 2017. Two very different players, played the game differently, but Jordan Fuller was good at it because you didn't complain. You weren't like missing Malik Hooker. Like, you would have loved to have had him, but the back end of the defense wasn't an issue. So you can replace somebody with somebody completely different, and they play the game differently. And I think while you've got some similar skill sets here, you may have to do certainly some things differently overall scheme wise. But also, you've got enough guys that can do some of these similar things that you don't have to abandon everything that you did last year. Tom, for instance, Terry Moore, I'll have you know, was a 92 rating on the college football game. So there you go. Enough said. I believe Earl Little is an 89. I just checked this the other day. Um, Kyle Parker, 69. So we'll see if he's even going to make the team in the spring. Who knows? But overall, like I like the parts, right? And I've said you chided me and you chastised me for saying Jalen McClain was like the poor man's Caleb Downs because he does do some different things and he does find the ball. And I think that's the thing about all three of these guys. One of the things that they do well is find the ball. Terry Moore, 4 or 5 interceptions last year. Earl Little, 4 interceptions last year. Caleb Downs only ever had like 2 interceptions a year. Jalen McClain, from the time he came to Ohio State, Matt Guerreri is talking about how much he loves him because he just keeps getting after the football and he finds the football. One of the highest rated players in terms of that stat that they have. Now you've got 3 guys that are all kind of like that. So, like I say, in the aggregate, like what they do and how they do it can replace a lot of what Caleb Downs did. The thing that you got to wonder about is just that last line of that one tackle that saved, a touchdown. Now, Jalen McClain had some of those tackles last year. So, he was that last line of defense at times, but the guy that just knifes in and drops somebody in the backfield, do they still have that? Or is that something that now that 2-yard loss is a 4-yard gain? And how many times over the course of the season does that lead to a touchdown drive that now makes this a 4-quarter game? And just based on the butterfly effect of a couple of tackles here and there that aren't made, now you're in a 60-minute game where you're either on the field on offense for the last possession of the game trying to score, or your defense is out there trying to stop it, just from not having Caleb Downs out there over the course of the season. So I like what they've got. I think, as you said, I think they did about as good a job as you could trying to replace him with all of the parts. And now it's just a matter of asking them to do the right things at the right time.
Yeah, I think on the whole, the 3 safeties, and I'm including Little here, he's going to play nickel probably, but he's kind of in that safety conversation. When you think about where the defense was at the end of last year when Lorenzo Styles was really banged up and missed some time, I think you could make an argument that they're as good on the whole as they were without him, between these 3 guys. And it's going to look a little different. You're going to have guys in some different roles, and you're going to have some flexibility where, certainly they had moments where Lorenzo Styles was asked to play that deep safety spot, and they're shifting guys around and being unpredictable. And I think you're going to see more of that this year with the 3 guys that they've got. But I think your point that I think is really, really important, that it is going to be one of those things that you're not even necessarily going to notice it, but it's those tackles that were tackle for a loss of 2 that turn into a gain of 2. And if it's first down, the difference between 2nd and 12 and 2nd and 8 is not enormous, or 2nd and 12 and 2nd and 7 is not enormous. And that's not one that at the end of the game, you're going to be going back and looking and going, that was the one. If they have a blown coverage and someone goes 70 yards, yeah, believe me, don't worry, you'll notice. You will definitely notice that. But it's a lot of the other stuff, the real fine margin stuff, where that was the stuff where you would see Caleb Downs. He would just come in. There were a couple games where I remember one right at the beginning of the UCLA game where he just came in and just like boom, tackle for loss, and it was just UCLA's first drive was basically dead on that first play. He had one right at the end of the Michigan game that I remember where I think it was a tight end, caught the ball, and Caleb Downs goes out there and cuts him down for no gain or loss, a short loss, something like that. And that was, Michigan sort of on one of their last drives where it was, they're probably not going to do anything, but Caleb Downs made sure everyone knew they are not going to do anything. If that turns into a 2nd and 5, well, yeah, maybe you can do something there. Those plays are the ones just sort of on the margins where you're really going to miss him, but I don't know that you're going to notice that you miss him. And we don't know that these guys won't be able to do that. Right. Caleb Downs was so unique in making those plays in as many key moments as he did that you can't assume that, okay, well, we're very high on the guys that they're bringing in. We think they did a fantastic job identifying talent and acquiring the talent. All of that, until we see them do the Caleb Downs stuff, you can't assume that they're going to do the Caleb Downs stuff.
Yeah, and even the stuff where the quarterback doesn't throw a ball somewhere because there's Caleb Downs, and like, what are you doing there? You're not supposed to be there, that sort of thing. So you'll see some maybe just a more wide open area for quarterbacks to throw to, where it's like, boy, it doesn't seem like that happened last year. And I think some of that will just be because Caleb Downs took that away, and so you didn't even notice that it wasn't there, basically. So there you go. How are they going to replace Caleb Downs? Very, very carefully and with a lot of help from their friends. Very, very easy to do, of course. It takes a village, as we all know, and you just got to do your 1/11th, and maybe you can get it done. So there you go. How will Ohio State replace Caleb Downs? If you're watching on YouTube, please hit that thumbs up. We'd appreciate it. Tell your friends about us as well. That's always fun for you, of course. I don't know why it's fun. It's not fun, right? And, of course, 5-star rating and review on the audio side. And you can continue to find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you all later.